The weeks leading to Christmas were a mixture of excitement and unease for Clara. As the youngest in a family whose traditions ran deep, the annual Christmas dinner was more than a celebration. It was a sacred ritual, a moment that brought together generations, stories, laughter, and memories. Every year, the family gathered at her grandparents' old house, filling the rooms with the scents of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and freshly baked bread. The crackling fireplace cast a warm glow on familiar faces, and the clinking of glasses was punctuated by music and holiday cheer. This year, however, there was an undercurrent that Clara couldn't quite shake off. The festive decorations, twinkling lights, wreaths, and ornaments collected through decades, felt almost like a backdrop to something else, something unspoken. The news of financial troubles looming over the family business had spread quietly in recent months. Though no one spoke aloud about worries or fears, Clara sensed a tension that was unfamiliar in the usually buoyant gatherings. There were hushed conversations in corners, furtive glances exchanged between her father and uncle, and a stiffness in her grandfather's usually jovial demeanor. Clara found herself caught in a whirlpool of memories as she prepared for the evening. She thought about past Christmas dinners, the way her grandmother's laughter had once filled the room, how her grandfather used to carve the turkey with care, and how her parents had danced awkwardly to festive tunes. Those moments of joy seemed distant now, shadows cast by the weight of uncertainty. Yet, despite everything, Clara held on to hope. She hoped the dinner would be a moment of unity, a refuge against the struggles that loomed outside the front door. The preparations themselves were a flurry of activity, as every family member played their part. Clara's mother meticulously arranged the dining table, selecting heirloom china passed down through generations. Her father, usually pragmatic and reserved, busied himself with small tasks, trying to maintain an air of normalcy. Her grandmother, the matriarch, moved gracefully around the kitchen, her presence commanding respect even as her smile held a knowing sadness. Clara's own emotions were a tangled mix. As the youngest, she often felt somewhat overlooked amid the adult concerns but was keenly aware of the undercurrents. The anticipation of seeing her brother, who had returned home for the holidays after years abroad, added layers of excitement and nervousness. There was something different about this Christmas, a sense that the unspoken past and unresolved tensions would surface in unexpected ways. As guests began to arrive, the house filled with the warmth of reunion and celebration. Cousins hugged tightly, aunts and uncles shared stories and jokes, and children ran through the halls with boundless energy. Yet Clara noticed how the laughter sometimes faltered, how conversations occasionally drifted to silence when a certain look passed between family elders. She caught snippets about changes in the family business, legal matters, and vague allusions to inheritance that no one seemed willing to discuss openly. The festive music played softly in the background, blending with the aroma of food and the soft murmur of conversation. Clara watched her father greeting relatives, his smile polite but distant. She wondered what lay behind the practiced calm, the worries he didn't voice and the plans he kept to himself. Her mother squeezed her hand briefly, a silent comfort that spoke volumes. As the evening progressed, Clara's thoughts circled around the fragility of family ties and the complex web that bound them. The dinner table, lavishly set and sparkling with glassware, held more than food. It was the stage for old traditions and unspoken expectations. Clara felt the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future pressing down, wondering what would be revealed in the course of the night. Despite the shadows, Clara resolved to hold onto the meaning of Christmas, the hope, the love, and the possibility of forgiveness. She reminded herself that families, no matter how complicated, often found ways to heal in moments of gathering. This year's Christmas dinner might be filled with surprises, challenges, and even pain, but she clung to the belief that it could also be a turning point, a chance to face the past, embrace the present, and step into the future together. The house buzzed with a bittersweet energy as the final preparations were made. Clara took a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the mingling scents and sounds that had defined her childhood Christmases. She knew the night ahead would change everything, that the unspoken would find voice, and that family bonds would be tested in ways none of them expected. And so, as the clock neared the hour of gathering, Clara stood at the threshold of her grandparents' home, ready to face the unknown, surrounded by the echoes of tradition and the fragile hope that love could withstand even the deepest secrets. This Christmas dinner was not just a celebration. It was the beginning of a story that would alter the course of her life and her family's forever. As the afternoon sun dipped lower on Christmas Eve, family members began to arrive one by one at the old ancestral home, each bringing with them their own mixtures of expectation and apprehension. The familiar creak of the front door and the occasional ringing of car doors echoed through the quiet neighborhood, signaling the arrival of relatives who had traveled from far and wide. There was laughter and the shuffle of footsteps as coats were shed and holiday greetings, exchanged with warm embraces and polite smiles. Clara welcomed her cousins, aunts, and uncles with heartfelt greetings, each interaction carrying a subtle undercurrent shaped by recent tensions. The usually seamless flow of conversation felt measured, as if everyone was carefully feeling out each other's moods and loyalties before diving into deeper exchanges. The family had grown over the years, branching into different paths and lives, and tonight's reunion was a rare chance to reconnect, but also a stage for unresolved conflicts to bubble to the surface. From the kitchen, the comforting aroma of spiced cider and roasted chestnuts mingled with the soft click of silverware and plates being arranged on the dining table. Clara's grandmother, the matriarch, orchestrated the preparations with quiet authority, her gaze drifting occasionally toward the door as relatives arrived. She carried the weight of family history with grace, always mindful of delicate dynamics, even as she navigated the night with warmth that masked the sharper edges hidden beneath. The father's subtle glances between guests did not go unnoticed. Clara sensed a tension rooted in financial concerns and inheritance discussions that had long whispered through family gatherings but never fully spoken aloud. Conversations often shifted abruptly when certain relatives mentioned family business, investments, or the future of the estate, revealing cracks in the facade of holiday cheer. Aunt Helen's quiet questions about the brothers' roles hinted at alliances and rivalries that simmered beneath good-natured banter. Clara observed the subtle but significant shifts in body language. Uncertain smiles exchanged, moments of tight-lipped silence, and the occasional sharp look darting across the room. Cousins who once played together as children now stood at opposite sides of unspoken divides, weighed down by years of accumulated disagreements and resentments. Her uncle's rare joke, intended to lighten the mood, barely elicited a smile before the atmosphere settled back into an uneasy quiet. Among the guests was Clara's older brother, Thomas, who had returned from abroad after a long absence. His presence brought both relief and apprehension. Though beloved, his long distance had kept him removed from the family's internal struggles. Tonight, he was expected to bridge divides that had grown wider in his absence. Yet Clara noticed how even he seemed cautious in his greetings, probing the undercurrents with careful questions and guarded expressions. Dinner was soon announced, and family members gathered in the dining room, taking their places around the large oak table, its surface gleaming beneath flickering candlelight. The table was laden with traditional dishes, roast ham glazed to perfection, bowls brimming with vegetables, and platters of delicate pastries. Yet the sumptuous spread could not mask the taut silence that occasionally descended, nor the respectful distance carefully maintained by some. Clara felt the weight of expectations pressing down. Here, amid festive trimmings and holiday music, underlying tensions found subtle expression, through deliberate pauses, carefully chosen words, and veiled references to legacies and responsibilities. Her father's occasional glances over his shoulder, or a quiet clearing of the throat from her grandfather, suggested that this Christmas dinner would not be like the others. Despite the fragile peace holding the family together, Clara couldn't help but wonder how long it would last. She sensed that tonight's gathering was a crossroads, a moment when deep-rooted secrets might emerge, alliances shift, and family bonds be tested in ways no one could predict. There was a palpable waiting, as if everyone was bracing for the inevitable. What would be said, what would be revealed, and how the night might change the family's trajectory forever. As the first toast was raised and glasses clinked softly, Clara took a breath, steeling herself for whatever was to come. The warmth of the room seemed to pulse with a bittersweet energy, a mixture of love, tension, and unspoken questions hanging thick in the air. The Christmas dinner had begun, but the true heart of the evening, woven through memories, loyalties, and secrets, was yet to unfold. As Christmas dinner progressed, the atmosphere was a curious blend of traditional festivity and subtle tension. Plates were filled and refilled, laughter occasionally punctuated the table's subdued hum, and stories of holiday memories were shared. Yet beneath the polite exchanges, an unexpected moment sent a sudden ripple through the family gathering, one that would change the course of the evening and shake the family's delicate balance. Just as the main course was served, Clara's father cleared his throat to gain the family's attention. His voice, steady but tinged with an unusual seriousness, cut through the chatter. "This is for your brother." With these simple but weighty words, he handed over a carefully wrapped package to Thomas, Clara's older brother, who sat near him. The room fell to a hush, eyes all turning toward the two men. The gift was no ordinary present. It was an envelope, thick with documents and papers hinting at something far more significant than holiday cheer. Whispers rippled through the guests. Was this a symbolic gesture? A financial decision? The slight stoicism in their father's eyes suggested gravity, making it clear this was not just about a gift but about legacy and division. The attention shifted, and the weight of the moment settled heavily on Clara. Clara's heart tightened as she watched Thomas accept the envelope, his face composed but reflective. She felt a sharp pang of exclusion and confusion. Why was her brother singled out? What was contained in that envelope that merited such a public announcement? The warmth of the evening felt suddenly strained, a palpable tension weaving through the room. The reactions around the table were mixed. Some family members whispered behind cupped hands, exchanging knowing glances. Others looked toward Clara, whose expression must have mirrored the confusion and hurt felt by many. The gift stirred questions and stirred old wounds. Had favoritism existed all along? What did this say about her own place in the family? From across the table, Clara's grandmother observed quietly, her calm gaze following the scene with a depth that suggested far more was at play than met the eye. She remained silent for now, her presence an anchor amidst the swirling uncertainty. Yet Clara sensed that the real revelations of the night were yet to come, many of them tied to that envelope. The moment shifted the evening's dynamic, bringing into sharp focus the fragile power balances within the family. Conversations grew more cautious as family members digested the implications. Clara felt the unspoken question hanging in the air. If this was for your brother, then what awaited her? The sense of exclusion was painful, but also a catalyst, stirring the need to uncover truths long kept in shadow. The gift was a turning point, an outward sign of deeper undercurrents, complex grievances, and secrets that had shaped the family's history. It sparked silent reckonings, forcing each member to reassess loyalties and expectations. For Clara, it was the moment when the Christmas gathering ceased to be a simple festive celebration and became something far more complex. A confrontation with legacy, identity, and the meaning of family. As the evening wore on, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the envelope was more than just a document. It was a key to unlocking the hidden fractures beneath the holiday veneer. This simple phrase from her father, "This is for your brother," would echo in her mind, signaling that tonight would be remembered not just for celebration, but for revelations that would change everything. The day of the wedding arrived with a weight that no one in attendance could fully understand. The venue was stunning, adorned with white roses, soft candlelight, and elegant decor befitting a joyous celebration. Yet beneath the polished surface, Anna's heart was heavy with turmoil. The morning had been filled with restless thoughts, punctuated by brief moments of hope that somehow things could still be as she'd imagined. But deep down, she knew the truth she had uncovered couldn't be ignored. Dressed in a delicate lace gown that symbolized so much more than beauty, Anna moved through the familiar rituals of bridal preparations with mechanical grace. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman torn between duty and self-preservation, love and disillusionment. Close friends whispered words of encouragement, unaware of the full depth of the conflict raging inside her. She smiled when she could, but it was a fragile mask. David appeared calm, the image of the perfect groom, but Anna saw behind his carefully controlled expression the traces of his own fear and guilt. They exchanged brief, tense glances, words unspoken hanging heavy in the air. There was no simple resolution, no easy conversation left for this moment. The vows they had so eagerly rehearsed now felt hollow, impossible to say with conviction. As the guests gathered and the procession began, Anna's steps toward the altar felt heavier with every move. Flowers and music surrounded her, blending into a surreal atmosphere where the weight of her decision pressed down like a stone. The faces she saw among the crowd were filled with expectation and joy, starkly contrasting with her internal storm. When she reached the altar, standing opposite David, a profound clarity washed over her. The love she had once felt was tangled irrevocably with betrayal and broken trust. The promises they were expected to make, of honesty, fidelity, and lifelong partnership, felt like lies waiting to be spoken. In that charged silence, Anna realized that saying, "I do," would mean sacrificing her own truth and dignity. Taking a steadying breath, she drew on every ounce of courage she had. With a trembling voice that grew stronger with each word, Anna addressed the crowd. She spoke of the hope she had once held, the pain of discovering David's past deceptions, and her unwillingness to build a future on falsehood. Her words echoed through the room, a confession, a statement of self-respect, and a declaration of independence. Then, in a moment that stunned everyone present, Anna stepped back from the altar and walked away, leaving David standing alone. Gasps and whispers erupted among the guests, shock, disbelief, and sympathy mingling in the charged air. David's face paled, a stunned silence replacing the festive music. Some people looked confused, others nodded quietly in respect, understanding the courage behind her decision. Leaving the venue with her head held high, Anna felt a complex mix of sorrow and empowerment. She had chosen honesty over convenience, truth over social expectation. In that decision lay the seeds of healing and self-discovery. The experience was painful, undeniably so, but it also symbolized a powerful act of reclaiming her life on her own terms. The ripple effects extended beyond the event itself. Family and friends grappled with their own responses. Some supportive, some disappointed, some uncertain how to navigate the changed dynamic. Anna knew their judgment or opinions could not define her. What mattered now was her own path forward, one forged in courage and the refusal to accept anything less than authenticity. That day marked a profound transformation. The public drama of leaving her groom at the altar was more than a dramatic gesture. It was a fundamental act of self-worth. Anna walked away not just from a wedding, but from a relationship that could not honor her values. The decision was heart-wrenching, but it also opened the door to a future where she could heal, grow, and embrace the possibility of love that was truthful and whole. As the evening wore on, Clara felt the weight of her grandmother's quiet presence grow more profound. After the tense moment when her father had handed her brother what seemed to be a preferential gift, the atmosphere was charged with unspoken questions. Sensing Clara's turmoil, her grandmother gently pulled her aside away from the others, leading her to a quieter corner of the room where the warmth of the fire flickered softly. With a deliberate tenderness, her grandmother reached into her bag and produced a thin, neatly folded envelope. "I want you to have this," she said softly, her eyes steady yet compassionate. "It's my will. There are things here you need to know and carry forward." Clara's breath caught. Receiving the will so unexpectedly, on Christmas night surrounded by the conflicted gaze of her family, felt like being handed a key to deeply buried truths. Clara unfolded the fragile paper and glanced at the formal handwriting, the list of names, assets, and instructions carefully itemized. The will revealed decisions about inheritance that were far from the family's unwritten expectations. Unlike the gift her brother had received publicly, this document spoke of nuance, quiet deliberation, and a different kind of legacy, for Clara in particular. It hinted at trust and responsibility bestowed in a way that might reshape the family's future. The shock of the moment mingled with a swirl of emotions: confusion, gratitude, and a sudden realization of the weight of this inheritance. Clara understood that her grandmother's gesture was more than legal or financial. It was deeply personal. Behind the formal words lay stories, sacrifices, and a silent apology for years of secrets and silence. The will was an olive branch wrapped in ink and paper, an invitation to step into a role fraught with both honor and challenge. Clara felt the eyes of time and generations upon her. The Christmas dinner, a scene that had begun with festive tradition, had shifted into a crossroads of family legacy and fractured relationships. Her grandmother's quiet act exposed layers of history, hard choices, and love complicated by circumstance. Receiving the will was both a blessing and a burden, a powerful call to navigate the complexities ahead with courage and wisdom. The exchange deepened Clara's understanding of the family's hidden dynamics, the unevenness of past favors, the fractured bonds, and the careful balancing act her grandmother had attempted all her life. It was clear that the evening's surprises were just the surface of far greater stories, ones Clara now carried with her. As she folded the will and tucked it safely away, Clara felt a new sense of purpose blossoming. The Christmas dinner had become a defining moment, a passage from innocence to responsibility, from silence to truth. The gift to her brother and the will handed to her were two sides of the same legacy, symbolizing the fractured yet enduring threads that wove her family's story. Clara returned to the gathering with a mix of resolve and reverence. The night continued, but her world had shifted. The quiet power of her grandmother's gesture lingered in her thoughts, signaling that this Christmas was not just a celebration of the past, but the beginning of a new chapter, one that would demand strength, honesty, and the courage to heal old wounds and build a future shaped by truth. After receiving her grandmother's will that evening, Clara was overwhelmed by the magnitude of what lay before her. The document felt weighty not only in its physical form but in the emotional and moral responsibilities it represented. Sitting quietly in her room later that night, she unfolded the pages again, reading the carefully drafted words that outlined how her grandmother wished her estate, and implicitly her legacy, to be handled after she was gone. The will was detailed and explicit, covering properties, heirlooms, and financial assets that had been accumulated and preserved over decades. Yet what struck Clara most profoundly was the subtle way in which her grandmother had voiced trust and faith in her through these allocations. The inheritance was not merely material. It was a call to stewardship, a recognition of Clara's maturity, judgment, and perhaps a sign that Clara was seen as someone who could mend the family's fractured ties. As Clara absorbed the legal pages, she reflected on the complex family dynamics that the will revealed. The choices made by her grandmother, gifts assigned to specific individuals, conditions attached to assets, even exclusions, spoke volumes about past grievances and hopes for the future. She saw how past conflicts, unspoken resentments, and secret alliances had shaped these decisions, complicating the notion of fairness and unity. The immediate emotional impact was a tumultuous mix. Clara felt honored but burdened, valued but apprehensive. The responsibility was immense, and the prospect of stepping into such a role pressed on her heart with overwhelming weight. She wondered how this knowledge would affect her relationships with her family, especially knowing that certain truths now rested squarely on her shoulders. Clara's mind raced with questions. Would this inheritance create new fractures or heal old wounds? How would her brother feel about the disparity between his father's gift and her grandmother's will? What were the expectations that came with this legacy, and could she live up to them? These uncertainties added layers of anxiety to the already charged atmosphere wrought by the evening's earlier events. Despite the confusion and pressure, Clara also sensed a clear mandate to act with integrity and compassion. The will was more than a legal document. It was a testament to her grandmother's desire for justice and reconciliation in a family torn by favoritism and silence. It was a beacon, signaling Clara's emerging role as a possible mediator and guardian of the family's future. That night, sleep came fitfully as Clara wrestled with the enormity of the gift. The quiet house seemed to close in around her, amplifying her thoughts and fears. She knew that she could not keep this to herself. For both practical and emotional reasons, the contents of the will would have to be shared, discussed, and ultimately trusted to shape what came next. The days following the Christmas dinner became a period of deep introspection and planning. Clara sought counsel from trusted friends and legal advisors, trying to understand the implications and practicalities of managing her grandmother's estate. She also braced herself for the inevitable family conversations that would follow, the negotiations, confrontations, and perhaps healing. Throughout this process, Clara realized that what she was inheriting was not just wealth or possessions, but a delicate legacy of family history and emotion. Carrying her grandmother's wishes required wisdom, patience, and above all, courage. It was now clear that the Christmas dinner had marked the beginning of a profound journey, one that would challenge Clara's resolve, redefine her relationships, and ultimately transform her. Her grandmother's will was both a gift and a challenge, a bridge between generations and a testament to enduring love beneath the layers of family complexity. Clara understood that honoring this responsibility with grace and honesty could be the key to healing the fractures that had long shaped her family's story. Receiving her grandmother's will at Christmas dinner plunged Clara into a storm of emotions that mingled confusion, surprise, and an acute sense of responsibility. As she held the document, the weight of the night's events settled deeply within her, sparking an intense internal struggle that she could not easily escape. Clara found herself grappling with a whirlwind of feelings. Initially, she was stunned. She had never imagined that, amid the holiday cheer and familial warmth, such a serious and life-altering matter would be entrusted to her. The reality that her grandmother's trust had been placed explicitly in her hands awakened both pride and pressure. Pride in being seen as capable and significant, but pressure born from the uncertainty of what this meant for her future and for her relationships. A surge of confusion followed, tangled with a sense of being caught between worlds. On one side was her family's traditional expectations and the whispered tensions she had sensed growing for years. On the other, the unexpected empowerment granted by her grandmother's decision confronted those old dynamics head-on. Clara questioned how she fit into the family's complicated hierarchy and what her role would be going forward. Mixed with these feelings was an undeniable pain, a sting of exclusion and unfairness that lingered from her father's earlier gesture to her brother. She wrestled with resentment, wondering why certain choices had been made publicly for her brother but quietly for her. The contrast magnified long-standing insecurities about favoritism and recognition within the family, making the evening's revelations feel both deeply personal and painfully universal. Yet beneath the confusion and hurt burned a growing determination. Clara realized that while the emotional journey ahead would be difficult, the moment also represented an opportunity to redefine her place in the family and shape her future with intention and integrity. The will was not just a document but a charge, a call to act with wisdom, courage, and compassion. This realization sparked moments of quiet reflection. Clara contemplated the legacy her grandmother was leaving, not merely in material terms but in the values and hopes woven into her final wishes. She understood that honoring that legacy meant navigating family complexities while striving to heal old wounds. Her task involved balancing loyalty with justice, tradition with renewal. Late into the night, Clara's mind was restless, turning over the potential consequences of the will's contents. She wondered how her family would react when the details became known. Would there be anger, jealousy, or acceptance? What alliances might form or fracture? These questions loomed as she recognized that her relationships could never be quite the same. Clara also felt the weight of expectation from within herself. The responsibility to manage her grandmother's estate was daunting, but so was the emotional labor of reconciling her feelings about the family's past and her own future. She realized that healing, both for herself and for the family, would be a long, uncertain process requiring patience and strength. Ultimately, the receipt of the will at Christmas brought not just legal matters but profound emotional challenges. Clara's struggle was a crucible of identity, trust, and hope. The blend of emotions, surprise, hurt, determination, and reflection, marked a pivotal chapter in her life. As the holiday lights dimmed and the festivities wound down, Clara stood at the crossroads of past loyalties and future possibilities, ready to embrace the difficult path that lay ahead. News of the will's contents and the unexpected gift to Clara's brother quickly spread through the family, unleashing a wave of reactions that ranged from stunned silence to overt confrontation. What had begun as a quiet Christmas dinner transformed into a crucible of raw emotions and shifting alliances, as relatives struggled to process the implications of the revelations and their impact on family dynamics. Some family members reacted with shock and disbelief. The clear favoritism suggested by the father's public gift to the brother contrasted sharply with the private handing of the will to Clara, revealing fractures in the family's unity. Questions arose about fairness, transparency, and accountability. Whispers turned into conversations, and conversations soon erupted into heated debates. Rooms once filled with laughter echoed now with murmurs of suspicion and resentment. Among the relatives, factions began to form, with some aligning themselves behind Clara, recognizing the significance of her grandmother's trust and the responsibility she had been given. These supporters praised Clara's maturity and integrity, seeing her as a beacon of hope for healing fractured family ties. They urged for understanding and renewal, advocating for an open and honest reckoning. On the other hand, others sided with the brother, perhaps feeling that past grievances or family history justified the father's preferential gesture, and were wary of changes that might upset established balances. Accusations were quietly exchanged about loyalty, entitlement, and the true meaning of family. Underneath polite exteriors, simmering tensions beneath the surface threatened to boil over. The conflicting emotions sparked confrontations both subtle and direct. Private conversations became charged with veiled criticisms and defensiveness. Family members questioned motivations and choices, delving into long-buried disputes and personal resentments. Past grievances were reopened, many related to inheritance, perceived favoritism, or misunderstandings that had been left unaddressed for years. Clara found herself at the center of this storm, trying to navigate these turbulent waters with a mixture of grace and resolve. The responsibility she carried grew heavier as she became a focal point for both hopes of reconciliation and sources of frustration. She listened carefully, weighed opinions, and began to see the complexity of emotions intertwining with practical concerns about legacy and fairness. The discussions also brought to light previously hidden family secrets and uncomfortable truths. Old letters, forgotten conversations, and historical grievances surfaced, adding depth to the controversy surrounding the inheritance. These revelations forced the family to confront not only the present disputes, but also the unresolved history that had shaped their interactions. Amidst the unfolding drama, Clara recognized the need for careful mediation and empathy. She understood that healing would require more than legal fairness. It demanded acknowledgement of pain, open dialogue, and a willingness to forgive. The family's future depended on their ability to move beyond entrenched divisions and to rebuild trust on new foundations. The winter storm outside mirrored the emotional turbulence inside the family home, both powerful and unpredictable, threatening to tear apart what was fragile yet also offering the chance for renewal once the storm passed. Clara's journey through this crisis was not just about managing an inheritance but about guiding a family toward a path of understanding and unity. As tensions simmered and alliances shifted, Clara braced herself for the difficult conversations ahead. The drama unleashed by the will and the gift was a turning point, challenging everyone to reevaluate their relationships and values. It was a moment heavy with potential, for reconciliation or further fracture, for truth and forgiveness or hardening of old wounds. The family was now caught in a delicate dance of emotions and expectations, with Clara standing as both participant and mediator. The choices made in these moments would echo for years to come, shaping not only the distribution of material wealth, but the very fabric of their shared history and identity. As the family wrestled with the implications of the will and the unexpected gift to Clara's brother, long-buried secrets began to surface, peeling back layers of silence that had cloaked their history for decades. What started as quiet murmurs soon evolved into revelations that reshaped everyone's understanding of their collective past and changed the present dynamics irrevocably. Old grievances, once whispered or ignored, spilled into the open. Family members shared stories of past betrayals, hidden debts, and forgotten favors. Some secrets centered around financial hardships long concealed to protect the family's reputation, while others involved personal indiscretions and fractured relationships that had never fully healed. These revelations provided context to the distribution decisions in the will, shedding light on why certain members had been favored or excluded. Among the most profound discoveries were tensions between siblings that dated back to childhood, rivalries fueled by jealousy, misunderstandings, and perceived neglect. Aunts and uncles confessed to long-standing resentments rooted in moments of favoritism or unfair treatment. These confessions stirred a mix of sympathy and frustration, reminding everyone that the wounds they carried were old but still raw. One particularly impactful revelation concerned a discreet agreement between Clara's grandmother and her late grandfather regarding the family estate. This pact, known only to a few, had stipulated specific roles and responsibilities among the heirs, which shaped the allocations in the will. Understanding this background helped some family members reconcile with the decisions, though others found it difficult to accept. As secrets unraveled, the family also confronted moments of quiet heroism and sacrifice that had gone unrecognized. Clara learned about her grandmother's struggles to keep the family together through financial crises, health battles, and interpersonal conflicts. These stories added layers of respect and complexity to the matriarch's legacy, deepening Clara's sense of responsibility. The resurfacing of hidden truths was not without pain. Some members reacted with anger or denial, unwilling to face uncomfortable realities. Others felt betrayed that information had been withheld or distorted over the years. Emotional confrontations grew fiercer, forcing individuals to acknowledge their roles in the family's fractured history. Yet, amid the chaos, these revelations offered the possibility of healing. By shedding light on the past, the family had a chance to understand each other more deeply, to move beyond blame and resentment toward empathy and reconciliation. Shared histories, once sources of division, could become foundations for renewed connections. For Clara, witnessing this unfolding was both challenging and enlightening. She recognized the complexity of navigating truths that could both wound and heal. It became clear that the inheritance was more than financial. It was an inheritance of history, emotions, and relationships requiring patience and wisdom. This chapter of Revelations marked a turning point where the family's narrative shifted from secrecy to openness. The process was fragile and fraught, but it set the stage for transformation, offering hope that the painful past could give way to a future rebuilt on honesty and understanding. As the family moved forward, they faced the delicate task of integrating these new truths into their lives. The journey promised to be difficult, but the courage to confront hidden realities was a crucial step toward mending the fractures that had long divided them. In this crucible of discovery, Clara and her family found the possibility of renewal amid the shadows of their shared history. In the weeks following the Christmas revelations, Clara found herself at a critical crossroads, facing difficult decisions that would shape not only her future, but also the fragile fate of her family. The emotional turmoil stirred by the will, the gift to her brother, and the secrets uncovered weighed heavily on her, forcing her to reflect deeply on her values, priorities, and sense of justice. Clara recognized that moving forward required more than managing legal and financial details. It demanded emotional courage and strategic wisdom. She understood she could no longer remain a passive participant in the family's drama. Instead, she needed to take an active role, not just as an heir but as a mediator and a catalyst for healing. This responsibility felt immense, but Clara knew it was also an opportunity to redefine herself and her relationships. She began by carefully considering how to communicate with her family. Honesty had become paramount. Clara decided to call for a family meeting, a space where grievances could be aired openly and expectations clarified. She hoped that fostering dialogue would help bridge divides rather than deepen them. Preparing for this gathering, Clara sought advice from trusted friends and professionals, learning to navigate the delicate balance between assertiveness and empathy. At the meeting, Clara faced the complex task of addressing years of resentment without alienating family members. She acknowledged the hurt and confusion the inheritance had caused and expressed her own struggles with the burden of responsibility. Her sincerity helped create a tentative atmosphere of openness, allowing long-suppressed feelings to surface in a controlled and respectful way. During these conversations, Clara emphasized the importance of fairness and unity, urging the family to look beyond material assets toward the preservation of relationships and shared history. She proposed practical solutions for estate management, such as equitably dividing assets, creating transparent legal agreements, and establishing processes for continued family dialogue. Her balanced approach began to ease tensions and foster cooperation. At the same time, Clara grappled privately with her own emotions. She sought therapy to process feelings of betrayal and loss, as well as to build resilience. This personal work strengthened her ability to lead and to forgive, not only others but herself. She learned to set boundaries and to prioritize her well-being while remaining committed to family healing. Clara also had to navigate difficult conversations with her brother, whose own reactions ranged from confusion to defensiveness. Over time, they began to rebuild trust, acknowledging past wounds and seeking common ground. Their renewed relationship became a cornerstone for broader family reconciliation efforts. Despite progress, challenges remained. Some relatives resisted change, clinging to old grievances or refusing to accept the will's terms. Clara encountered moments of frustration and disappointment, but remained steadfast in her commitment to fostering peace and fairness. Through this journey, Clara grew into a leader and peacemaker, transforming a painful inheritance into a platform for growth and unity. She learned that navigating family complexities required patience, humility, and unwavering integrity. The decisions she made reflected not only practical concerns but also a deep desire to honor her grandmother's legacy by building a future rooted in trust and love. Ultimately, Clara's choices marked a turning point, not just in estate matters, but in the very fabric of her family's story. Her courage to confront difficult truths and to act with compassion opened the door to healing and hope, signaling the possibility of a new chapter where past wounds could give way to renewed bonds and shared understanding. In the months that followed the tumultuous Christmas gathering, the family gradually began to find a new rhythm, one woven from the threads of confrontation, reflection, and tentative reconciliation. The impact of the will, the gift to Clara's brother, and the unfolding of long-hidden secrets had irrevocably altered their relationships, but also opened the door to healing and renewed understanding. Clara, now carrying the mantle left by her grandmother, took on her role with a blend of humility and strength. She became a steady presence amid continued discussions and negotiations, guiding conversations toward resolution and common ground. Through patience and openness, she helped family members see beyond daily grievances to the deeper connections and shared history that bound them together. The initial fractures in the family did not vanish overnight, nor did all tensions dissipate. Some wounds remained sensitive, and a few relationships required ongoing repair. Yet the willingness to engage with vulnerability and honesty marked a profound shift. Family members began to communicate more openly, listening without judgment and acknowledging past mistakes. Old resentments softened as empathy grew. Clara found personal growth alongside the family's healing. She discovered new depths of resilience, learning to balance her own needs with her responsibilities. The process deepened her understanding of forgiveness, not as forgetting or condoning, but as a conscious choice to release bitterness and foster peace. This journey enriched her relationships not only with family but within herself. The legacy of Clara's grandmother resonated throughout these changes. What had initially felt like a burden transformed into a gift, a chance to close painful chapters and begin anew. Clara honored this legacy by creating space for dialogue and bridging divides that had long seemed insurmountable. Her actions inspired others to reconsider their roles within the family and embrace healing as a shared goal. Holiday gatherings that once brimmed with tension gradually reclaimed warmth and joy. Christmas dinners became occasions not only for celebration but for reaffirmation of family bonds. Stories of the past were told with newfound wisdom, lessons learned from hardship that now served as cautionary tales and sources of strength. Looking back, Clara recognized that the struggles they had endured were part of a larger story about love, loss, and the complexity of human relationships. The Christmas dinner that had once seemed devastating was, in hindsight, a pivotal moment, a catalyst for change that forced truth into the light and demanded growth. In this resolution, Clara found peace. She embraced a future shaped by honesty, respect, and genuine connection. The family's journey was far from perfect, but it was real, grounded in the courage to face difficult truths and the hope to build something better. The story closed not on an ending but on a beginning, a chapter of renewal, where the scars of the past bore witness to the family's capacity to heal and to the enduring power of love to overcome even the deepest divides. Clara stood ready to carry this legacy forward, hopeful and empowered, a testament to the strength found in truth, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of family.